this chapter, we are going to briefly go over the GHS, the Globally Harmonized System for Classification and Labeling of Chemicals. So this GHS is going to go through some of the chemicals. The whole thing about the globally harmonized system is to make sure that you know exactly what chemicals you're working with that is being communicated to you. So we're going to go through that. So it is a standardized system, harmonized globally, so that everyone knows how to classify certain chemicals and then label them, so that the workers that are working with these chemicals will be able to understand the hazards that they have. It changed the MSDS to the SDS forms. So the goal number 1 was to define health, physical, environmental hazards of the chemicals, to create a classification process that used available data on chemicals for the purpose of comparison with the defined health criteria. 3 was communicate the hazards and protective measures on labels and the SDS. So that is where you see the change, where your actual communication for hazardous chemicals is not using the National Fire Protection Association diamond anymore, or the hazardous material identification system labeling. You're still going to see that label in your hazardous waste and operation cleanup, but you're not going to see that as a labeling for chemicals in the workplace. So most of the US people are used to seeing, 0 to 4, 4 being the most severe of any chemical. And now with that switch with the GHS, 5 is the most least severe, and category 1 is the most severe. So it kind of took a little while for us to get used to that, and changed our flammability and combustibility ranges into Celsius. So before, this is the system we had in the US, not completely harmonized ourselves. So going with the GHS, now you know that anything from 0 degrees Celsius up to 23 degrees Celsius in a boiling point, if it's greater than 35 degrees Celsius, it's highly flammable. If the boiling point is less than 35 degrees flammable, then it is extremely flammable. And then flammables 23 to 60 range, 60 to 93 is going to be a combustible liquid. So that's in the GHS. The most extreme, of course, gets the number 1. The least extreme goes to a 4. And that's where you have your listing there. And you'll see the flammable fire pictograms. So we're introduced to pictograms in this GHS transition, and the labeling will have words like danger and warning. Those are the only 2 words you're going to see, danger and warning. And the other thing that we had was the toxicity scale with the lethal dose of 50. So basically, you get 100 lab rats, you keep feeding them and checking out your lab results and see how many of the actual lab rats or whatever you're using, if they die off. At some point of induced exposure to this chemical and whatever dosage it is, you're going to get a die-off, and a die-off of half of your test subjects. That's when you establish the lethal dose. So that's the LD50. So again, we're all over the place, but now with the GHS system, we know that when you establish a lethal dose of 5 milligrams or kilograms or less, you're very toxic. So now that becomes a number 1, and then you work your all the way down to 5,000. If you get to that and it's toxic at 5,000 milligrams or kilograms, that's less toxic than the one item or substance that was toxic at 5 milligrams or kilograms. So then you get your quantification of what those numbers mean. Then you have 2 more pictograms. Again, it is going to be a toxicity or an irritant. That's pretty much where you're going to see those 2 different ones there, which will give you your danger zone and your warning zone. So, quick overview of the GHS, but truly this is the labeling of chemicals. You really want to know the SDS sheets because the safety data sheets are going to tell you exactly what to look for the hazards, how to protect yourself, what to do in first aid cases, what to do in fire cases, and that's all going to be, well, it is harmonized. So every chemical you get that SDS sheet. You want to look for that information so you know how to prepare your workers when they're in a confined space. So the next thing we're going to go over is other confined space hazards, and then we'll just keep going through this program.